I get a break here because it happened when I was 13 years old. I was a young wannabe photographer, and I had been researching the cost of setting up my own darkroom. It's a mostly lost art. You need an enlarger. They ran from very simple optical lamps for under $100 to super sophisticated models that ran over $1,000, film tanks, chemicals, paper, and dozens of other pieces of equipment. Plus, you needed a light-proof room with decent ventilation. My parents were mostly supportive, if not, mostly disinterested. I was allowed to come and go as I please, and they were willing to let me use an unused bathroom at our house to set up my erstwhile dark room. I just never had enough money to do it, so I used to have to use a rented dark room at a local studio that charged by the hour. My 15-year-old brother was a very early computer nerd and phone freak. Early hackers used a Captain Crunch whistle to get free calls, but that's a whole different story. He had different projects going on all the time, some pretty sketchy. He used to buy stuff from the US government. They mailed books for auctions and surplus disposal. He had set up a bidding account and had bought crazy used electronics and decommissioned communications devices. It was all through sealed bid offers and conducted solely through snail mail. You'd see a listing you wanted, you filled out a bidding form, and then sent it through the mail. If you were the high bid, you'd receive a notice, sometimes 4 to 6 weeks later, with instructions on payment and dryage. He showed me a brief listing that caught his eye. It's been 50 years, but it went something like portable field darkroom, enlarger, trays, storage, self-contained with supplies and tools. The listing had dozens of abbreviations and other details that I didn't understand, and it was located 90 miles away in the San Diego area. Shipping was to be coordinated by winning bidder. I was very excited. My brother had gotten electronics and tools for pennies on the dollar. He agreed to send a bid for me. After much deliberation on how much to bid, we came upon the magnificent sum of $80. There was little to no chance that I would win, but who knows? We sent off the bid. When the end date came and went, I breathlessly checked the mail daily to see if won. Finally, I received a very official-looking envelope with basically a notification and an invoice. I won. We paid through a postal money order and received instructions on where to collect my triumphant spoils. This is where things go sideways. We just had no way of getting the stuff picked up. It was miles away. I didn't even have a bicycle at the time. Thanks Bobby Dickstein, my brother worked out a deal with a super shady guy named Lance who had a mini truck. For a tank of gas and some swiped booze. My parents were super light drinkers. By the time I moved out, the bottles behind their bar were 90% water. We were mobile. We drove down to the warehouse with my paperwork in hand. Turns out we were going to a Marine base. There we were. My brother a slightly chubby freckled redhead, me a scrawny prepubescent doofus, and Lance a long-haired stoner, straight out of Dazed and Confused. 15 years ahead of time, but period correct. He was wearing a Mr. Zog's Sex Wax t-shirt. As we got closer to the gate, Lance starts freaking out. He's got pot on him and no ID. After we explained who we were and why we were there, the gate guard had us drive to a holding area. Do not exit the vehicle. Do not drive past the second fence. After about 25 minutes, a very stern-looking guy came out and walked around the truck. Gentlemen, I understand you're here to retrieve a parcel. Yes, sir. Do not address me as sir. I work for a living. I may have made this up. I am Gunnery Sergeant Jones. Is this the vehicle in which you intend to remove your property? Yes, Gunnery Sergeant. Well, who is our manflant? Well, me, sir. I mean Gunnery Sergeant. He said to follow him. He took us to a dusty field and storage yard where we passed building after building of neglected green junk. Everything was covered in tarps and tied with rope. He finally stopped and said, "Do you see the problem here? Hun, what? This is your darkroom." We were in front of a dilapidated 20 trailer from no later than 1960. It was filthy and sitting on very low tires. He opened the door. "Go ahead, watch out for mice and spiders." Inside was as shitty and rotted as the exterior. Boxes of old photographic supplies, unrecognizable canisters, and an ancient vintage enlarger that was probably state-of-the-art when Ike was in the White House. I was crestfallen, feeling dumb. Gunny chimed in, "I don't think Cheech's rig will tow this thing. I wanted to get out of here and never look back. What happens if we don't pick it up? Kid, unless you're hiding a diesel rig somewhere, that thing is going nowhere." We left. The coup de grace my brother, and I left. As much as I wanted to split the blame with him, He was older, this was on me. I told him it was great deal, and that I knew everything on the listing. My money was gone thanks Gerald Ford, but the worst was yet to come. Sometime in the next few weeks, we started getting official-looking abandoned property letters and notice of forfeiture, and then, it happened. I came home from school one afternoon, and there in front of my house was the green beast. My horror was compounded by the fact that it was blocking driveway. There was no hiding from this. I went inside the house. I remember closing the drapes as if my parents wouldn't notice it when they came home, and started frantically calling the numbers I had for the warehouse. It was about 3 or 4 tries in when I finally got someone on the line who could help. Yeah, we had a load going to Oxnard, and Gunny said to drop it off on the way. I said, "Are you crazy? I am a 13-year-old kid," the guy on the other end said. "We lines according to the Department of Disposal, you re the owner of a surplus trailer," and hung up. About this time, a small group of nosy-ass neighbors and kids, most of my friends, had gathered around to see the green behemoth. This was perfect timing as my dad was rounding the corner in his brown 1970 to Fleetwood broom, which was a tank in its own right. My parents were not exactly engaged helicopter parents. My siblings and I pretty much did whatever we wanted with little of no supervision. They only got involved when our antics disrupted their lives. Like now, my dad was not Ward Cleaver. He basically said deal with it. Over the next few days, I cleaned it out and was able to move it, so it wasn't blocking the driveway, 8 kids pushing it. After a few days, we decided to run an ad in the LA Recycler. I sold it to a hippie who showed up in a vintage postal truck and gave me $50. I eventually built my darkroom, and my family still teases me about the beast TL. Drive. 13-year-old me bid on a portable darkroom and won a decommissioned military trailer.